Hi, this is Gus Van Sant, director of To Die For.
My name is Eric Edwards, and I'm the cinematographer of To Die For.
Hello, this is Curtis Clayton, and I edited To Die For. If you want to talk about how it all really began, I mean, it started out as something for you and Buck to do together, wasn't it?
Buck had asked my agent, John Burnham, we had the same agent, and he wanted to work with me specifically because of, I think, Drugstore Cowboy or whatever. And so this became like a project because there was material. Buck had wanted to write something for me.
So it was you and Buck were interested in doing something together, and then you found this material?
Yeah. Buck thought it was interesting, and we all just joined together, with Laura producing it at Columbia. I remember Mike Nichols was fighting to direct it, but of course he was friends with Buck Henry, but he heard we were doing this and he was trying to get me kicked off the project so he could take over. Maybe there was something that was like interesting about it,
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they knew the case.
How did you know Mike Nichols was trying to take over? Did Buck tell you?
I think it was part of one of the fights I had with Laura. She said, but I stuck with you when Mike Nichols tried to get you kicked off this project, And I was like, what was it? Tell me about that.
So Buck never said anything to you about it?
No.
But
I never asked him about it either. I remember calling Buck to find out something, and he said, I'm watching possibly the most interesting thing you can see on TV, and it was Charles Manson defending himself to try and get parole, which was pretty good. I tuned in. But he was obsessed. I think he had it on all day.
I mean, that's kind of unusual in itself, right? To televise a parole hearing?
Yeah, I mean, it was happening like that with cable TV. There was Court TV, which televised the Woody Allen trial and eventually OJ, I guess, but Marlon Brando's son's trial, the Menendez brothers,
right,
was about the same time, right, about 95.
So Buck took that idea and put it onto a fictional character who realized that she could achieve her dreams of fame by committing a crime that would then become an entertainment show on TV.
Yeah, exactly. He was totally into that. The Joyce Maynard book was not really about media.
Yeah.
But Buck was all about media.
So what interested him about it was that this was one of the early cases where the media found a story that fed their appetite for nonstop sensationalism. Yeah.
Like it was one of the first international
pre-OJ.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Soon to be followed by OJ.
Exactly. Which happened when you were shooting, right?
Yeah, that happened during one of the shoots.
If you get too close
Yeah.
to the screen, all you can see is a bunch of little dots. You don't see the big picture until you stand back. But when you do, everything comes into focus. Hi, my name is Suzanne Maretto. No, wait, I'm sorry.
I remember when Nicole came and we were doing this, it was like
My own?
she was reading her notes and they were long paragraphs she had to read. She had to read the whole thing and perform it, and she just nailed it from beginning to end.
Yeah.
When she has the white blank surround around her, it's like, formalistically, what is that? Well, it's her against a white background, like in a studio. Like, this is a studio shot. Like, what kind of shot is this?
But we had to it was hard for us to figure out, like, the tape that we're watching is the tape she's making to give to David Cronenberg.
Yeah.
Another cameo. Who's the mafioso who's gonna kill her? And And so if it was against the wallpaper, it wouldn't work. You know, it would
give
tip
it
off
away.
that it was give it away. So we figured out, if we could put her in front of the window,
yeah.
it could be as if, like, it could work as a white backdrop, but then also it could just be a window later.
Yeah. You know, it became a formal issue.
Yeah, it was hard.
Because
really hard.
At some point you're going to reveal, and it comes up at the end of the movie, you're going to reveal that this is an interview with her, but she shot it herself, which is even more macabre in a way, and that, you know,
We could have done something like, it could have been like an out of focus gray, that before she stops the camera, it goes in focus and you realize she's just in her living room.
Yeah, it's a lot more effective this way because it's so distinct from everything else in the film visually, and you keep going back to it, but you have no idea what it is. I mean, it's like a narration, and then you reveal at the end that she's been taping herself. It blends into the main narrative.
And it is an important reveal, isn't it?
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, it's huge.
But I think it's nice to hold that mystery until now, or just maybe it's not a mystery until now. It's also a little crazy. I mean, like the way Buck wrote the script was that there was a lot of flashback, flash forward, then of course there was sort of the present day, and it's you're in and out of reality in different time frames so much that it's like, you know, it's almost hard to say which one's the real one, you know. I mean, because when you finally get to the end of the movie, of course, it's all wrapped up pretty much in present day, end of the movie. But we go back and forth and into so many levels of narrative encasement, you know, that it's sort of like all these scenes are in brackets, you know, they're in parentheses within the other scenes. So almost like a story within a story. So it gets quite confusing. And I think the way we had to differentiate them was to use different formats. You know, exercise the formats as much as we could. So we were choosing 35 millimeter and 16 millimeter video formats. And on the TV studio stuff, we were shooting color video, probably a 3/4 inch on that. So it was just a matter of all those different, we needed to visually identify the different levels so you could readily know where you are in the story.
The Ice Maiden.
You don't know what you're talking about.
I know? Okay. Inform me.
Well, it's none of your business. But Suzanne, she looks, you know, very fragile and delicate, right? Mm-hmm. But when I'm, look, I don't even know why I'm telling you this. Details are too graphic. But let me just tell you, she's like a volcano.
I mean, people come from miles around just to watch her explode.
You know, when you're working on a film, you usually you're working day to day and you talk about the performances, so you just sort of casually talk about it in terms of the actors. You know, like you'll say, you know, the scene where Matt is playing in his rock band, or the scene where Joaquin is at school getting stoned. But, you know, when we talked about Suzanne, we never said the scene where Nicole goes to the radio station. We always said the scene where Suzanne goes to the radio station.
Right, yeah.
So it was just in a weird way that character took over everything. And when you were in the early stages and doing the casting, and Nicole approached you about wanting to play the part, you think there was some aspect of her wanting to challenge this perception people had of her, that she was that, you know, there were certain aspects of her career moves and being married to Tom Cruise and wanting to be seen as something other than just an actress who had really married up, and it helped her to get a higher profile, that she wanted to confront that head on, right?
Yeah, I think there was some reason that Nicole was, she was super interested in playing this part, to the point where because we were waiting for a different actress to answer us, or to wait until she was done with another film, and CAA got Nicole to call me directly, and she just sort of via phone, she shoved me up against the wall and she said, "Look, I'm destined to play this part. I'm destined for this part." And, you know, she didn't say I'm going to play it, but she almost did.
That sounds very Suzanne like.
Someday I hope to interview him and we would discuss that along with other, more pertinent international things, you know?
I'm telling you.
And then I called Laura and said, I guess she should play it because she's too good, you know? And also that idea that, yes, she did really want to, you know, scratch out her own turf within the family household, that Tom was such a big presence that she could have her own thing. We kind of knew that was probably happening in their family, so we were guessing that would be, you know, like, get her going.
I don't know. She was made for this role. Watching it last night, it was like, my God, there's so much going on inside of her head. Like, you can see through her eyes, and you hear it when she talks. I mean, I just thought my sense that she was really prepared somehow. Like I hear about actors preparing for a role, and she just seemed so bringing so much to it.
She really worked hard on it. I mean, she had a coach, you know, acting coach for months and months that she hired at great expense, and she had on the set a huge notebook of exercises she could do every day for each scene, how to go off the script and ad-lib within each scene. She let me see this book that actors usually don't let the director see, she claimed. And
wow.
It was really impressive. Like, she was all ready to go. And often I think she was helping direct, you know, the kids, for instance. She would help. Like, I didn't direct Nicole. She kind of directed herself and then helped direct stuff, like, on top of it.
Right.
Remember shooting this?
Yeah, that was the first
day.
First day, and we put the camera. It was basically a living room with a Christmas tree and presents. So we put the camera in a particular place, and Laura and her associate came up to me and they said, "So you're putting the camera there?" I'm like, "Yes." Like, "Why are you putting it there? Why are you putting it there?" And I said, "I don't know, just a hunch, you know, like."
Yeah.
And they go like, "Well, it could go over there." You know, it was a great start, yeah. So
it's about trust, right?
Sign of things to come.
yes, more stories.
But I'm just curious about that. So Nicole came to you and really aggressively said, "I was born to play this part." So then when you went to Laura, what did she think of that?
I think Laura had already been called by Nicole. So Laura was into it. Laura didn't call me. I just immediately called Laura. She wasn't Laura wasn't particularly pushing it, I didn't think. But she just immediately agreed, you know, like, yes, let's do it.
Yeah. Because there were bigger names who were interested in the part, isn't that correct?
Right. Meg Ryan was the biggest, but Meg had already bowed out because she felt maybe it was too risky.
Yeah.
To play with her image like that.
Was she attracted by that aspect of it? You know, because at the time she was still, you know, she was primarily known because of her marriage, not so much. I mean, she was getting lead roles, but she was still more well known for her marriage.
Yeah, Mrs. Tom Cruise. Maybe she did, you know, like, she was so into it. But I think she didn't mind that a lot of the actresses we talked to were worried that people would hate her character. And Nicole was, like, into that aspect and played it up, you know, like, really pushed that aspect.
Well, that's what I'm always been impressed with about Nicole, is that it is risky. And,
yeah,
you know, and particularly for where she was at the time. And she, you know, instead of playing it safe, she really went for it. And,
Yeah.
You know, the result was like this great performance that's like really one of her greatest performances. It's like I still think about this as like this is probably the greatest performance I've ever worked with on any film I've done. You know, it's just an overwhelming performance. Like I said, the power of that character is just like a steamroller.
Yeah.
And he did. He sold his drums.
It's kind of the furthest we go back is when she first meets Larry.
Just for her.
And so that's kind of her youngest look. And
I remember you always said, Gus, that you felt her wigs had something to do with that transformation as well. You know, that when she put on those wigs, it really sort of did something to her in terms of like erasing her own identity and bringing Suzanne to the forefront.
That was a big kind of question, that she had very, very curly hair, which we haven't seen since. You know, I think the wig it seemed like it was Laura Ziskin's idea. And I thought that natural was better, you know, like leave it really curly. But Laura was really into like the, because they had to spend a lot of money making the wig, getting the wig, and then, the wig I think really did transform her to the point where she kept using it ever since. You know, I think she's probably got the same wig. You never see her with curly hair.
That's a pretty little lady you got there.
Yes, sir. We've been married for 4 days and 18 hours.
Well, I wouldn't let her out of my sight.
oh, Florida, yeah. We went all the way down to Florida for just a weekend and shot that. Very kind of second unit, kind of guerrilla unit.
Have you ever seen her? Not yet. But you will.
I always like this shot of the back of her head. It's just kind of enigmatic. Obviously, there's a lot of cleverness in the way Buck wrote this. You're leaping forward in time, you're going back in time. And I mean, I think that as a convention is set up right away in the movie, so the audience is not, you know, they know that going into this, they're going to be jumping back and forth in time a lot. So it's kind of like we almost have free range. We almost have a carte blanche to just go wherever we want, come back and forth. A lot of things were prepared to be shown on video monitors throughout the film, and it was a sort of a deliberate attempt to weave in reality with television, live television, recorded television, and we do that in the TV studio. It was a kind of a deliberate use of our camera sliding from seeing, you know, the parents in the studio talking, tracking over to see a monitor. So I think that point of view, the point of view is often from the television set. The point of view is often from the media. And we're always trying to make you aware of that the media is one thing, then the reality is another. You know, it's amazing to me watching this film. It's so Kodachrome. It's so Technicolor. I mean, it's very, very rich, and the blacks are just buried. There's so much. Film was such an incredibly different, you know, we'd call it gamma, but there was such a different, the materials were very hot and contrasty. And so that's why you had to watch color temperature, because color temperature would just go warm or go cool with a very short drop in it, whereas digital today sort of embraces that and evens it out. But I love it. I mean, when I look at a film print now like this, it's a film print, and it's very, very, it's a whole different color science. But I kind of miss it in a way, but you really had to be on top of it because you were shooting it without knowing what you were seeing until you got the brushes back.
And that's why you went to dailies every day.
And Nicole came every day with Tom to the dailies that you guys were at.
Oh yeah,
it was like us three, Nicole and Tom.
Well, you should explain that this was in the days of shooting on film and editing on film, so which is the ritual of watching dailies every day doesn't exist anymore. It's even hard to imagine it anymore.
I know.
At the end of every day, we would all go to a theater and watch the dailies.
for an hour and a half.
And yeah,
Yeah.
I know. Can you imagine?
But that was so cool. Why? It's too bad that's gone really from filmmaking today.
It's too bad, yeah. It's kind of amazing. You also wouldn't know whether or not there was a mistake in the exposure or whatever. Like everything was an experiment.
Well, I would go. The lab said to me, they said, "Well, come in at 5 in the morning." You know, the footage would get to the lab at, 8 o'clock at night after shooting all day, and then it would be printed. And in the morning, they would have a first print in the morning, and I could go to the lab at 5 in the morning or 6 in the morning and sit there and, if I had the energy, and look at that high-speed projected. And then, because you're always worried about how it's going to look or how Nicole's going to look. You could order a reprint before we were going to watch those dailies.
It also kind of amazes me hearing that now that there was no issue about the cost involved in reprinting those dailies. Because I remember in those days that was a common thing. The cameraman would go to the lab and then there would often be a second set of dailies because they weren't happy with how the first print of the dailies looked.
Well, that was the beauty of doing a film for Columbia, is that you could do that,
Oh, you mean on a lower budget film you wouldn't have done that? In Seattle?
Didn't that happen even on My Own Private Idaho?
We never ordered reprints, I don't think, on Idaho.
You didn't because of cost, right?
Yeah. Well, we also, if you have somebody like Nicole Kidman in a film, I worry about her, how she looks. So I'm always like, okay.
Oh, okay.
And if Nicole's going to be watching the dailies, I always wanted to make sure that we had the best print to show her. And so at least I had 2 chances to print it, okay. But to get up at 5 in the morning and go to the lab before you go to the studio and shoot.
If River or Keanu looked like crap.
Well, we knew from Idaho.
They were already playing gutter kids.
Well, women.
It was better if they looked like crap.
Yeah, that's true.
No, it's perfect if they look like crap. But it's too bad we don't have Buck Henry to talk about this. It would be great to hear him on this commentary track, wouldn't it? He's very kind of dogmatic about humor, about comedy, and writing it. He really wanted the film to be played the way it was written. And he was not. He was a little bit cautious about improv. And I think he's so accomplished, though, as a writer, and there's so much going on in this film that seems to have been worked out. And a lot of just great invention, because there were so many levels of this film. There was like Suzanne, and she had her 10-watt regional cable station footage. We had our omniscient camera, which is like you, Curtis, telling the story, the big picture, and then we had sort of the interviews, the 16mm interviews with everybody.
Right. Which I see, we didn't really affect it. You didn't handhold it either. You zoomed.
Yeah, well, because the documentary footage is, it's not news footage, because that would be too ephemeral. It would be too topical. It would be too quick. So it's meant to be an in-depth documentary. That's why I say done by the BBC. So it just involves a next level of media.
Hey, Gus, I would be curious to know a little bit about how George Segal ended up being in the film, because I remember that he's not credited. And I remember when the dailies appeared that day, all of a sudden, here's George Segal, and I thought, wow, that's pretty.
I think he must have been a friend of Buck's. It's funny that you didn't know about it, but I don't think it was a secret. I just always knew he was going to play it. He just didn't try out. He didn't. He had been such a big star before that.
He was huge in the 70s, like in all those comedies, like The Owl and the Pussycat. He was a leading man for a long time in the 70s.
Nicole is sort of this. She's in drag, isn't she? The lip. Look how she's done her lips, and
oh yeah.
She really turned
Suzanne
it on for
drag.
this. Yeah. Look at this. She's amazing. But that ties into the wig, too, because she was really in this sort of glamorous or her own fantasy of how she looked.
Yeah.
But anyway, keep talking about the actors and casting. Yeah.
I mean, I remember trying to cast, for one thing, Matt Damon as Jimmy. That was kind of an interesting thing. And he was very good. He was 27. He was a little too old, 26. And he needed to be 16. And he came in, and we all thought, when he left after his audition, Laura turned and said, "That's a movie star." And I was like, well, I'd hold off judgment for now. But he was really good, and we were really, really interested in casting him, but he was too good looking, so we went with Joaquin.
Gus, is that when you first met Matt Damon? Did you know him before that?
Yeah, I didn't know him before that. And we kind of got to know him because he lived near us in Hollywood Hills, DJ and I. And DJ went to one of their parties. But we got to know them because he suggested Casey come in. So Casey came in, and we hired Casey Affleck for
Russell.
Russell. And so through that, we got to know Ben, and then we got to know Matt, through that. Ben came to the set.
So that all came about as a result of Matt Damon coming in to audition to play Jimmy.
Yeah. Who was somebody who had done some big roles and, co-starring roles in Hollywood by that time. And they were writing Good Will Hunting at that time.
Oh, I see.
And so was Laura familiar with him?
Yeah, I think she was, because she had used him in the a film she had made, Courage Under Fire.
I see.
And he had played this amazing character.
That's sort of the kind of thing I was curious about, if Laura was pushing, say, somebody like Matt Damon, because she, like she said, he's a movie star, so she thought, here's a chance I can get somebody that's going to get a supporting nomination or something.
Yeah, she was, and, in general, you always do that. When you're casting in Hollywood, you're trying to get the top people. And, Howard Feuer was, I think he grew up in the business. And Howard was it was very show busy, the casting, and it's which was fun for me. I thought that was interesting. Ellen came in to play, I think maybe the sister or maybe even Suzanne.
Who did? I'm sorry.
Ellen DeGeneres.
Oh wow, okay. To play Ileana's part,
or else maybe even the lead. I'm not sure. She came in though, and she was sort of in her pre-out phase. She was acting in she was on a TV show, but she wasn't the lead of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she was known as a stand-up comic originally, right?
Yeah, but in this case, she had a show she was on when she came in to see us.
Mm-hmm.
What was your reaction to Casey Affleck when did you first encounter him and all that?
I thought he was perfect. He had the accent, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And we wanted something like that. So.
Did Ben Affleck audition for you?
No, it was just Matt, and then Ben. Ben did come to he came to Toronto just to visit briefly. Joaquin and Casey became really good friends.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
A lot of people were coming in and auditioning for these roles, or else talking about it with us.
Would you just audition the roles that were undecided yet, or would you?
Yeah, I mean, I think Wayne came in to and actually read, and a lot. Whoever was willing to read. Sometimes they were, you know, like they were too big to read, so they just came in and talked to us.
Nicole never read, she never auditioned for it?
I think she came in and talked to us about it.
I see. Uh-huh.
Nice to meet you, George.
Well, we'll think about it.
Mr. Rand, I believe that my assets.
Hey!
She's so determined.
We will. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I love the way this is all blocked out. It's really nice. This is kind of the moment when
I believe that in our best.
it's almost like a soliloquy, because we take our time and we track in, and I always feel like if you're going to track in, just go for it. So we go in pretty close, kind of an attempt to get right up inside of her. And you know she's revealing something about herself.
To make that dream a reality.
It becomes iconic, doesn't it? She always maintains a self-importance that is so grand that it supersedes everything that's going on dramatically in a scene, isn't it?
And what about Matt Dillon? Were you specifically trying to find a part so that you could work with Matt again?
Yeah, I think I always was like looking for parts for Matt.
Oh, I gotta go.
5 minutes.
That was probably on a short list of people to ask, you know, to play the
Right.
husband, and he said yes. So it
Yeah.
was sort of like there was no audition or anything.
It's interesting that, you know, Matt Dillon is playing the part because, you know, it's sort of like the third or fourth level part in the script, which, I mean, there really isn't, there isn't a part higher than that would be right for him. But,
Right.
you know, he's definitely a supporting character.
Yeah.
And yet to have his kind of presence as Matt Dillon in that part really makes a nice balance for the movie, you know?
Yeah.
As opposed to having somebody like a lesser known actor or somebody that was more of just a kind of standard, you know, kind of lunkhead guy playing it.
The guy used to be on TV.
You know what I mean? With
Yeah.
Matt Dillon in
Yeah,
the part,
yeah.
you sit up a little straighter when he's on screen because it's Matt Dillon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Plus, he made it interesting every time he was on screen. It really did.
I worked on her file, her idea file. She had so many ideas.
So, you know, Gus, you were saying about like all of Nicole's preparations and did she have any input into the wardrobe? Because that was another thing that was so kind of defining for the character, the clothes she wore.
Well, Beatrix Pastor did the wardrobe, which she had done the 3 films before that you had also done. But all these things are basically they're Beatrix's things.
I remember there was controversy about the wardrobe.
Beatrix and Laura didn't really get along. Partly because, well, of course, it's like part of the sort of entertainment is like what she's wearing, you know, like as
Definitely.
You know, her idea of what's fancy was supposed to be a character thing. So
Oh yeah.
she had a lot of knockoff brands, and during the fittings, while Nicole was like taking off one of the shirts or something, Beatrix would like throw the other shirt to her, like across the room.
Uh-huh.
And Laura just thought that's not the way you treat somebody like Nicole Kidman. It was sort of the decorum that was going on was like not happening properly.
So Nicole never had a problem with these, saying
No.
these are too outrageous or these are over the top or whatever.
No, she loved them.
They fit into her concept of what she was doing. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
never really gave a rat's ass about the weather. Until I got to know Mr. Maretto. Now, I take it very serious. If it rains, or there's lightning or thunder.
So also the editing, now that we're watching the editing, and Joaquin shows up, what is it, like 30 minutes into the film?
At least.
And how the structure was like redone against...
Yeah, that's right. It was a pretty long editing process.
Yeah. Which was really
to say
funny.
the least.
I think I heard, Gus, that you said that you went through 12 different edits because the script is written sort of modularly, or that it didn't make sense the way Buck wrote it. Just in terms of comprehension and exposition, it came to a place where you had to go through a lot of edits to find out where the film would really play best.
I think that it was basically it made too much sense. It was too easy to figure out. So if you hid more of the story by... We were under the dictum from Laura to never change the order of the scenes for about a year or something like that.
And that got blown away eventually.
And we had 2 tests, and both tests it tested like at 32 points, which
very
was
low scores. Yeah.
Tell me if I'm wrong about this, Curtis.
Yeah.
So we had 2 tests. The first test, Curtis claimed that rightly that it wasn't the right audience. The second test scored 32, but Curtis had infiltrated the testing system and had found out like how they indoctrinated the audience. We thought that they were just grabbing people off the street without telling them that it was a dark comedy. They were telling them it was a romantic comedy, which were popular at that time, partly because of You Got Mail and films like that. And they wanted it to play as a romantic comedy. But when the people went in with their dates to enjoy a romantic comedy, that they found out that if they brought their girlfriends to this movie, like... everybody was disappointed.
Instead, they saw this weird thing.
And so, all Lisa had to say, besides telling Curtis he couldn't talk about that indoctrination process, she said, "Stop talking. Stop telling this story," which was really funny. And she said, "But we've got to figure out something to do." And I said, "Well, the one thing we haven't even done was just change the order of the scenes." And as soon as we got the okay to do that, being very obedient to Laura's wishes, then Curtis, you drew up like a map of how that would work, in more of a vein of Rashomon, the Japanese film, or Citizen Kane. So we were using those 2 films as a guide to tell the story in a different order, which was much better. But then it tested it. Only one point
It didn't
higher.
test any better.
but at least it had pedigree at this point.
And then they were going to dump it.
Yes.
And then we got into Cannes because half of the ownership was a rank film in Europe, and they entered it. They put it in the Cannes Festival as a show, and that got a good review from the New York Times. And all of a sudden, it was in a different track.
Yeah.
Or saved our film.
Yeah.
But Curtis, did you structurally change the intentions of the script to the way you laid out the information? Was there like it seems like it was more systematic. Like
it was completely changed.
I don't think it was changing the intentions, though. I just think it was.
But I mean, there was still the same elements.
Yeah. It was just that Buck's script was, you could read Buck's script and it like you understood it perfectly. But when you watched the cut that was exactly as the script laid it out, it didn't make any sense because there was a lot of basic things that like you can explain in the script, but then visually there's no way to convey that. Like one of the obvious ones was the title sequence. The title sequence that's in the film now wasn't there originally. It wasn't in the script. Remember, Gus, how the script began? It was a montage of their condo. In the script, it says, we enter Suzanne and Larry's condo. There's an air of menace. You can tell something bad happened here. But, visually, you're just having shots of a kitchen and a rug, and everybody was watching and going, what the hell is this?
Oh, that's right.
You remember that?
And the ring, there was a ring, right?
Yeah.
That's
right.
The
scene of the crime, and you saw like the bloodstains on the carpet and all that kind of stuff. And we had that. That's how we had it for the first couple of previews.
He would make a phone call, one phone call, and a man with a
Atlantis
in the middle of the night and turn you into a unit.
Wasn't this an editor's dream? Because the script is written very modularly. It's chunk by chunk by chunk. And it was like you could rearrange all those parts of the puzzle however you wanted,
Yeah, and Bucky, I think he even said that at some point.
Yeah.
We forgot.
Like, I don't know if anybody will ever have that opportunity again.
He didn't seem very happy about how we rearranged it, though.
He didn't?
No, definitely not.
No, I thought he was unhappy because we wouldn't cut Ileana out of the project.
Oh, he had a problem with Ileana staying on script, right?
Well, Buck, like most writers...
I don't think so. Yeah, it's probably true. He probably didn't like either thing. But do you remember there was the really classic moment where we had seen the film collectively as a group, I think for the first time maybe, with Buck and with Laura and you and I, and we had a meeting about it. And Buck had prepared a re-edit of the film on his VHS at home.
Yes.
And he started playing it to demonstrate how we could successfully cut Ileana Douglas out of the movie as the sister, because she wasn't acting properly, somehow her character. And we said, well, that's because she's the only one that's not buying Suzanne's story. It's like she should be different. And he was like, no, her style is different. And it was very odd request. Even Laura was like dumbfounded. We were dumbfounded because the tape was very hard to watch.
Yeah.
And
well, because he didn't have any proper editing equipment, so he was just doing it at home with his VHS decks. So every time he tried to make an edit, you could see the scan lines on the video, where there was like kind of a clumsy attempt to make a cut. So like you couldn't even watch it. I mean, he totally didn't make his point because you couldn't even watch it in a continuous way. And he kept backing up the tape, trying to like explain what he meant, and it kind of all fell apart.
I think you get the point. It's not exactly Mike Wallace eat your heart out, but
as I was watching it last night, Curtis, I was really thinking about the editing, and for some reason I was thinking about what Nicole was giving us. She was really completely available, and she invented so much to make it happen.
Yeah, it's not just Nicole, actually. Joaquin is pretty amazing in the film. Also, I think equally as good as Nicole.
Yeah.
Well, Suzanne, I sure pity the person who says no to you.
No one ever does.
The quality of these people that we're working with is just over the top,
Well, yeah, I mean, that's another amazing thing about this film is that, like, it's so many of the people in it. I mean, it's sort of, there's a part of it that's, like, reflective of the earlier period of Hollywood, which is, Buck, obviously. But then there's this other part of it that's reflective of what was to come, with Joaquin and Casey. And, like, Joaquin is, like, the biggest actor in the world right now. And, Eric, in regard to what you were saying, it's like, I think at the time, Joaquin almost went under the radar as far as being in this film. And, because he was like, it's not so much he was unknown, but, he had been just so much in River's shadow, you know,
Yeah.
and with everything that
Yeah.
happened with the River. And then, like,
Yeah.
here's Joaquin and it kind of, like, to the extent people were paying attention even, it sort of took them by surprise. I screened this for some students at UCLA a few years ago, and, like, afterward, one of them came up and said, I'd always heard about this film, but I didn't know Joaquin Phoenix was in it.
Wow.
You know?
That's because he was number 5 on the call sheet, you know?
Right. But I think it's like so early in terms of, you know, I think a lot of people don't think about Joaquin like pre-Gladiator, right?
Joaquin was unproven. He hadn't worked for like 4 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, the thing I was
and he mumbled.
yeah.
Definitely so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still does.
Casey was even worse.
Still does.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, and then I couldn't help but think about River, you know. I think what Joaquin was doing is what River did, which was that they weren't going to take any shit off of anybody. They were staying very authentic and nuanced and subtle, and somehow they weren't going to do anything different, and they were just so honest, and there was so much veracity to what they did that, you know, I'm not surprised that Joaquin went where he went, you know. He got on this level that was so authentic.
Oh yeah, it was insane.
And I don't know how he did it, you know.
I think he does that on all of his films. He just gets really into it.
And that's what River did on My Own Private Idaho, really, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it is method, but like when you mentioned method, neither of them knew what it was or cared.
Right.
But it's definitely a method. I mean.
Yeah, well, I mean, you talk about the commitment to the character like Nicole had, but Joaquin was just as much, you know, by whatever process he used, it was definitely there. And you know, you've seen that over and over again now with the roles he's played in the years since.
And Curtis, you edited this whole film from start to finish on film, didn't you?
Yeah.
And also shooting on video, like, I think from our point of view, we just thought that'll never fly. You know, this whole video thing is never going to fly.
The early digital was so crappy. It was horrible. And we were just waiting for it to become, I mean, eventually, of course, digital became a qualitative medium, and now it even surpasses film, which is, I hate to say, but yeah, it was, cameramen were really resisting the introduction of digital, probably more so than editors were.
A woman in my field with a baby has 2 strikes against her. I say I'm in New York, right? And I'm
New
like,
York?
Well, for instance, and I'm suddenly called to go on some foreign assignment. Like, a revolution.
She's really funny.
I mean,
serious interviews with a big fat stomach.
It's like, does she go too far, right?
she's starting to get fed up with her life of domestic bliss. And now they're pressuring her to have a kid, which is the last thing she wants.
Matt plays such an incredibly doting husband. I mean, he's so lays it on. He's so genuine, I think, in this role. It's clear he wants to raise a family. He's very clear in his values, you know.
It's really funny.
Like, that's an extreme line for her. You should have married Mary Poppins.
Hey, wake up, George. Let's hit it.
George.
She's already taken charge at the TV station. This is the only way poor Larry can see his wife.
Hi, everybody. This is Suzanne Stone with your late-night sign-off weather report from the WWEN Weather Center. I don't think I need to tell you that today was a hot one.
Like, this is brilliant. She flips it up. She flips the sun up. That's incredible.
Oh, when she did that,
who came up with that?
She thought that up. I think she got me and she said, "Look what I can do. I can throw it."
God, it's great.
The kind of heat that makes you want to just...
And this is like, so Joaquin's naked, right? Essentially, or got his briefs on or whatever.
I don't know.
Sure looks like he is.
He's probably naked.
But
So hot, he rolls over on top of me, and I'm yelling.
see, I think this is pure magic. I mean, you know, it was written, but it's executed so well.
This is like the Buck Henry fantasy.
Right.
Exactly. These scenes really came naturally to Buck.
And then you break the spell. Yeah, it's good.
So I wonder if anybody like younger than 70 would get that joke anymore. That he wakes up and there's a test pattern on the TV.
Yeah, they wouldn't. No more test patterns.
Right.
Even when the film was made, it was a little bit dated. But I guess because it's supposed to be a small town TV station, it still would make sense that they would go off the air at night.
Right.
Advanced media. Advanced bullshit, Larry. Look, I'm sorry, you're my brother, okay? I know you love her and you want her to succeed and all that, but sometimes, man, you just gotta say no. What do you mean, how? N-O, that's how.
Angling to his right, comes to the right of the key, throws up a short hook shot, it's good. And the score is again tied here in the first half at the Palace. With the ball, Skeeter Jones brings the ball to the forecourt.
Suzanne?
Up past the Marettos at the baseline.
Yeah.
Just got on the way, bingo!
What are you doing?
Just sitting here, waiting for you.
Larry, I asked you to please keep your feet off the concrete.
So this is Matt, like determined to reassert his male, his thing, you know.
But this is the scene that has the Iris into Matt as she like watches him making his pitch.
Oh, yeah.
That was another really interesting idea. Was that was like you had that planned in advance, right?
Yeah, I think enough that we had the iris. Yeah, because you got an iris, an actual old-fashioned iris.
No, I think we took it out of a Mole Richardson ellipsoidal thing, and it was physically it was a good iris, but yeah,
But then her look is really classic, and also there's sort of these explosions going off in the soundtrack.
Okay, so here's the wide shot. You belittle Matt with a wide shot, and then you're back to normal, and it's still wide, right? And then you do this slow track in. You start it here, and you're like you're milking it for all you can as he's talking. We're kind of examining more what's going on in her mind here, but again, it's one of those shots where if you're gonna do it, we just go all the way. And I think it's very psychological, too. It's very kind of probing. Now, this iris shot, I took the iris out of a studio follow spot, which is about a 6-inch iris. And we put that in front of the lens and just squeezed down on it. Kind of a very analog sort of thing. And her eyes, look at her eyes. And the hair. Now you do the iris. It's like, it's emasculating.
She's zeroing in on the target.
And back to this intense close-up. You're making visual in kind of a storytelling way something. It's being heightened by the way it's being played and by where the camera's placed and the cutting, how it's built in the cutting, and I think it's just good storytelling.
It's true that the road my husband and I chose to travel on was paved with many speed bumps. Larry said he would never stand in my way, whatever happened. But the word failure is not part of my vocabulary. My commitment to my career or my marriage or whatever has always been 110%. Regardless of how fast I was growing in my vocation, I would never leave Larry behind. The word divorce was never mentioned.
I love this scene. This is great.
So that idea of like all these kind of extreme visual things in the environment, you know, and then reflected in her wardrobe is all. Did a lot of that come from Missy Stewart?
Yeah. Missy, yeah.
Did she come to you and say like, I think we should have all these kind of like out there wallpapers and curtains and
Yeah, yeah. She just kind of did it. I don't know that we had the art department. I'm always sort of out of touch with because they have so many things to do. But the wallpaper in the living room was the one time when Laura wasn't sure it was too much, because it was like those spiraling waves, and so we got called in like to look at the wallpaper, and then we were saying, like you're never going to see it all at the same time. Like we're sitting in this environment, but the movie just sees one side at a time, so it's not going to be all as encompassing as it is now. But she was like afraid.
But I mean, look at this wallpaper and this pink carpet. I mean, all of these, it's just a reflection of her mental state. I always thought of it that way. That she's like surrounded by these environments that are like just kind of pulsating almost.
Point is, Larry is a nice guy, but he just doesn't know a thing about television.
And then there was that meeting about the Lydia's jean jacket, which
there was an objection to the jean jacket.
The jean jacket had cherries, big cherries printed on it, like oversized. So it was very ugly. And Laura was objecting because she claimed she wouldn't buy that in a department store.
Right.
And I said, I know, but Lydia would buy it in a department store. And Laura's point was, no, but I wouldn't buy it in a department store. And I said, but it's not for you. It's like for Lydia. Anyway, she let me have it.
Right.
But casting her, Lydia's part was hard because we wanted to have kind of a girl that would hang out with these guys, but also like her level of beauty was always a question. It was like, is she pretty? Is she not pretty? But this is like, she was perfect and she was very beautiful. And then her sister was a model. But we also looked at lots of different girls. It was one of the harder things to cast.
Judging it now, looking at it, because we're looking back on it, how many years? It's like, to me, it's like when I'm looking at it, I'm kind of going, well, is it over the top, And it never was at the time, and I don't think it really is. If you evaluate the film now, this is not over the top. She's wearing these very bright colors. Everything's there's a lot of exaggeration in this movie, but it's never, it never goes to this level of kitsch. It still holds the reality. When we shot this movie, it was a matter of what visual effects were available to us or how difficult they would be to do. So we were always trying to figure out things that were pretty simple and in camera. I think that Gus and I, we come from that place where you're just trying to figure something out with what tools you have right now. We decided to do this shot in one take, and it was really to communicate a passage of time, but also a change from one kind of state of mind to the next state of mind. So we just wanted to go from day to night. This is really an in-camera effect. And we did it with dimmers and changing the lights and switching things off and switching things on. And I suppose in a way this shot is sort of like magic realism too, because when you see it, you know it's been done on the set in one take.
Why don't we get some artificial plants for the restaurant?
Good idea. This way we don't have to worry about watering.
Exactly.
When you watch him in this next scene dancing, I think it's really interesting to watch Joaquin dance. And it's interesting to watch what Nicole does to Lydia. But Joaquin, I mean, he's totally inventing right now. He's like this is Joaquin. He's doing this, you know. And look at like Nicole. What's she doing? You know. It's just interesting.
It carries over from that lingerie scene because she's sort of like, you know, she's flaunting herself to both of them because she knows they can't possibly compete.
Yeah.
You know, so that's how she's like getting them on board with what she wants to do.
Yeah. I can't remember. Did you rehearse, or when in the beginning of the film, did you?
Yeah, we rehearsed. Sometimes we would go to the set and rehearse. I remember we would rehearse in the condo, that scene where they're dancing with Nicole.
Yes.
There was a rehearsal of that at some point.
Wow.
So because we had things like that. So
that's a phenomenally interesting scene to watch because there's so much going on and everybody's bringing something so delicate to that scene, I think, you know.
Yeah, and that's where Nicole showed me that book, which she wouldn't have done like if we were just about to shoot. You know, it was during a rehearsal.
And did she have notes about how she was going to play that scene written in the book?
Yeah, there were tons of notes. There were pages attached to pages. There was the workout page. There was the ad lib page. There was the question and answer page. You know, it was a workbook, a serious workbook.
Yeah,
I was impressed. I was like, it was like a phone book. It was huge.
It's really hot in here. When you come back.
The wallpaper in the condo and all the other set dressing is kind of in the same vein as her wardrobe. It's just all kind of very over the top, and sort of it kind of sets up its own vibration. It sort of clashes visually in its own way, in the same way that a lot of her wardrobe does. You know, so it even is working on that level too.
Hello?
Okay, Gus, tell us about this shot.
Exactly.
Because this shot was like a crane. This is a crane done in the studio. This is a kind of a...
Oh yeah, because we built the whole thing like this just so we could crane, which was maybe a mistake. I think it was a mistake.
Well, like, watch it. It's great. You own it. You own it.
Oh, and this is a great shot of Allison, her expression.
Right? It's so good. Yeah, oh God.
With her mouth hanging open like that?
It's priceless.
And she opens the door, right?
Yeah, and this is where, Gus, you go to an extreme close-up. Well chosen, I say. I think when you do close-ups like that, and you do it so rarely that they just have much more power to them.
We had a shot of what she sees, but it wasn't as good when you used it. It was much more effective just to stay on her, kind of mesmerized by watching them. Because what you imagine is way more extreme than what they actually were filmed doing.
Okay, you know those guys?
On that point about how you portrayed all three of the teenage kids, Gus, didn't you get some pushback from Buck about that? Because in the script, they're a lot more one-dimensional than they're portrayed on the film. You know, on the script, they're kind of like caricatures, sort of like Beavis and Butthead. Like Buck feeling some of the jokes weren't like as funny as they could be because the kids were so real. As opposed to just being these bonehead kids that were too dumb to realize what was going on.
Which I think would have been even more real, you know, if we made them Beavis and Butthead. It would have been, like, easier. But Joaquin does really good Beavis or Butthead. We sort of didn't go fully that direction.
Mm-hmm.
They're interesting. I mean, they're very interesting people. Both Academy Award winners for Best Actor. Strangely.
Right.
Well, that's what's interesting about this film, because I was watching Joaquin, and Joaquin's fascinating because he's playing this very, very, I mean, it's so fascinating to watch the arc of his character and what he's playing, because he's playing it so real.
I can't do this anymore.
What?
I can't go home every night and have him trying to touch me. And all the time I'm just thinking about you. About us. And when I push him away, he has this temper.
What do you mean? Does he hurt you? Oh.
There were these women, you know, on the Sally Jesse Raphael show the other day. And they were all wearing disguises so that their husbands couldn't find them, and they were living in shelters. And I thought I could go and live in one of them. If they'd let me bring Walter with me,
No.
I could go and live in one of them.
No, listen to me a minute.
Someplace in another state where no one even knows who I am.
Look, couldn't you just get a divorce? And then...
Then he would get the condo. And he'd get the car. And he'd take Walter from me. He'd take Walter.
Listen, I know you think I'm just a kid, but I could never do anything bad to you. Or ever hurt you. A guy that does that to someone like you doesn't deserve to live. That's the truth, he doesn't deserve to live.
Hey Gus, I can't
But he
remember.
sort of-
Was this dancing bit in the script? You know, where she suddenly like hears her song come on the radio and she.
His point of view, right? You know,
Yeah.
like she's dancing in the rain in the headlights. It's like it's too perfect.
Mrs. Maretto used to let me drive around in
I remember that it was in the dailies when the scene arrived, you know, in the cutting room, and it was all because it was such a strange choice, you know, especially in terms of the way Suzanne presents her character, she would go suddenly like completely break off and start dancing to this song that seems so kind of lowbrow, you know.
Yeah.
Hey, oh, don't
You
stop.
didn't answer my question.
What question was that?
Did you talk to Russell?
Yeah, I did.
Well, what did he say?
He wants $1,000.
Is that all?
And some CDs.
This scene intrigues me because it's like just how cut down to basic elemental things it is. You don't, it's like, and what you don't show her doing the act, you know?
Right.
And then,
Well, we couldn't. We probably would have.
It would be porn if
Yeah.
you did.
true that. But who came up with, like, Nicole does this thing, she goes down, then she comes up. Is that?
I mean, it was in the script that, you know, she went down and up. So we just visualized it, I think.
And she comes to within an inch of his face. Well, she's touching him, and she's talking, and it's such a...
I think that's all her. She's just doing that.
Yeah.
I didn't say get closer.
Right.
Whenever, Jesus.
That really was a great idea of the camera that moves down to his chest. You know, it kind of follows her partway down, but then you just hang on his chest as he's kind of breathing in and out. It really reminded me of that similar idea in Idaho, you know, at the very beginning when River tosses the money on Bob's stomach.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good.
But here he calls her Mrs. Maretto.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that got a laugh.
Russell's enough of a man to take charge of the
situation.
Well,
He looks at me.
she's like cheesecake there. It's just like she's so idealized.
And this is it's a real motel we're in.
Yes.
Which is strange.
I think we could probably do it next week. Is that soon enough?
Would you really do that for me, James?
Anything.
And then we can be together. And you can sleep over. And we can do anything we want to do.
Got it? Yeah, Angela, stand back. Tell me if it's straight.
Oh, it looks great.
That moment when she kind of blows the candle out and it all goes red, that was the thing that I think we kind of did on the set. But it involved switching, when she blows out the candle, we douse the set lights and then the red light is turned on. So it's another one of those little cues that had to be coordinated. And it was just, again, subliminal. It's not pointing a big finger at it, it's just that there's something kind of evil and satanic about it. I think the construction of a lot of these shots is very Hitchcockian, and it often has to do with the blocking or just the how long you stay on a figure, or there are a lot of things in this film. It strikes me as I look at it again that there's so many things that are kind of Hitchcockian. They're just sort of very deliberate and very effective moments, and they're very kind of presentational. I mean, the film really seems to be about her sliding into this place that's sort of advanced and sort of more disconnected with the real world. When she's killing her husband, I took these two fluorescent tubes and crossed them at 90 degrees, and that was
just crosses.
That was a source. That was a source that lit her eyes. Was those two tubes? Only when she's looking at the camera, and it's almost like the TV's always inside of her head. She's just completely being taken over by ambition and narcissism, and there you go.
Oh yeah, there you
the
go.
axis. And actually, Tom Cruise later, when I was shooting Knocked Up, he came on the set and he said, "Oh yeah, you're the guy who did the X's on Nicole's eyes." My place in history, right?
So, for the next few days, it should be just about perfect football season weather. Well, that's about it for tonight. I'm Suzanne Stone saying, I'll see you tomorrow, rain or shine.
And this was done in post. It was done from a still photograph in post. We had a still shot of Matt right there in that position, knowing that later on we wanted to do, Gus wanted to do something with a transition, sort of to, cement the idea that this man has died. I've always liked this part where the light just shuts off on her. I'm not sure who thought of that, but it's brilliant.
I can't remember.
Right there, yeah.
It might have been in the script. Oh, and this is where Mr. Maretto goes berserk.
Dan Hedaya. God, what a great actor. I love it. It's like police procedural, right? Ding, ding.
Now, as opposed to a lot of the stuff that we were talking about earlier getting rearranged, all this was pretty much exactly the way it was in the script. You know, Buck wrote it that way, that like the her dad gets a phone call and you cut away. You don't ever like hear them get the bad news, and even to the point of saying that she picks up the phone and faints.
Yeah.
Hello? What? Thank you.
Hey, wake up! We're open right now. All Saturday night around the clock.
So maybe like an incident at the restaurant. Some guy came in, he drank too much, and said something to me.
5-piece all wood dinette.
These are all reactions that are very important, and they're carried so well by all of the actresses and actors. It's amazing.
And glorious too. And that concludes our broadcast day.
That's your voice, Curtis.
Your community.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Oh, is that
because these were all of these clips were done ahead of time and they were played on set. It wasn't like a digital composite. So we prepared all these ahead of time, and I went to a studio in Toronto and edited those sign-offs, and also the the weather reports. Anything that's on a TV is actually being played in real time.
So, Gus, is this like the, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up kind of shot, in a way?
Yeah. This is,
No, but this is one of the best things in the film, and you came up with this. This isn't in the script, that she...
Goes outside?
It's in the script that she goes outside, and the lights turn on her, but to play the Star-Spangled Banner wasn't in the script.
Oh, no.
Which is really great.
The sign-off.
Yeah. It was just she sees lights from outside and she goes and like basks in the spotlight. But putting it together with the Star Spangled Banner was and that and you, because we prepared it ahead of time, you had planned to do this from the start.
Brilliant.
There was a whole discussion about. I also wanted her to have like 8x10s that she gets out and hands to the news guys. And they just mixed Buck.
That was too much.
That was too much.
I see. Okay.
In nominis Patris et Filius et Spiritus Sanctus. Amen.
That's what surprised me. That he didn't put up much for a fight. I ain't for a guy with such a mean temper. When I was standing in the hall with a gun, I was trying to keep from being too nervous by thinking about Mrs. Maretto and how we'd be together for the rest of our lives.
Gus, when we shot the cemetery scene, remember you played Imagine by John Lennon on the set? And then it ends up being something else, but...
The studio was going to have to pay $300,000 more. And then I was told by the delivery executive, I said, that's good that we saved that money by not buying Imagine. And she said, no, that's not good. And I said, why? I said, but they like to kind of spend a little more. It makes them feel like they're getting something better.
Oh.
Even if you go over budget. And I realized, that the studio kind of likes to pony up money for stuff like that.
That's the politics of studio, yeah. Sure.
We should have spent the money.
See, interesting. Okay.
Now, what you go in on the minister. I love
all
it.
These people kind of know something's up.
Yeah.
There's something's weird, you know, because she's playing that song.
I just knew. I don't know why I knew. I just knew. It was like a light just went off in my head, and I knew she'd. I knew she just got rid of him. Just got in her way. Anyway,
When you went into those rehearsals, were you apprehensive?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like you're always apprehensive about everything, and then you gain more information, so you gain confidence. But I do remember one point in the whole situation where I think Joaquin and Nicole asked for a meeting with me. I remember them coming in and just sitting there and looking at me. And I was like, so what's this meeting about? And they were like, well, and they were talking about the sex scene. Which, in the end, we kind of strangely filmed with absolutely no clothes on. But looking from above.
Yeah.
Remember?
Overhead.
That was the sex scene they meant.
Straight overhead.
The sex scene where they actually, like, have, full-on sex was never shot, like, in the room. It was like a bird's eye view.
Right.
In one way, it was to obscure their bodies. And also, we only used it as a flashback during the murder scene. Yeah.
When they asked for that meeting, were they saying that they didn't want you to film it in such
They
an
just
explicit
wanted to
way?
know what the hell, how we were going to do it.
Uh-huh.
Because they were uptight.
And had you decided on the overhead angle at that point?
I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
I think we just figured it out, like somewhere,
Yeah.
In Idaho, we did it with like sort of frozen frames.
Yeah.
Right.
We kind of were obscuring like maybe parts of it by having them stay still.
But not real freeze frames. The actors were just holding
fake-
still.
Yeah, which was funny.
Yeah.
I think it made it like so that it wasn't, as hard. It was obscuring it. And I guess the overhead bird's eye view was also like a way to obscure it.
It actually is like a lot more dirty in terms of just being a sex scene that you're like, oh my God, than if it were a standard, Hollywood sex scene.
Yeah.
Both those sex scenes in both those films are very like, you really feel like you've invaded their privacy. And yet they're so like abstract.
And that was one of the only times Joaquin came to the dailies.
Oh,
Was that
really?
day,
Oh, really?
When we showed that.
I fell in love with Buck when we were doing the movie because, we could hang out and we could have drinks and stuff. And Buck is like so underrated as an actor, really. And then when he comes on and he's in those scenes with Casey, they're over the top, but Buck always knew when he was in the zone. He always knew when he was going to be like right in there and not exceed it.
Since you were talking about Buck's performance as the teacher, do you remember your own performance, Gus, as the teacher?
Oh yeah,
as the English teacher. It's too bad it didn't really fit in too well, because it was a really funny scene.
We cut that whole sequence out. It was Jimmy's like fantasy sequences, but it wasn't that good. I mean, I saw it not too long ago.
Oh really?
I mean, it was fun to do it.
You were diagramming a sentence, right?
Yeah.
And then he was daydreaming in class of having sex with Suzanne while you
Which
were
is great, yeah.
diagramming a sentence.
The diagram itself was like a sexual sentence.
Exactly right. Yeah. Yes, I think it was that famous line about in the spring a young man's thoughts lightly turn to love, right?
Yes.
So I just remember you diagramming the sentence and you said, what type of man are we talking about? A young man. And his thoughts turn lightly. And then you keep cutting to Joaquin thinking about like with those overhead sex scenes. Yeah, that little bit of it as well there.
Yeah.
That's the piece Geraldo used with some minor...
Because it's so pivotal, and then that was in the footage that's shot on set, huh?
We made a few bucks on this one.
I believe so.
Oh, this breaks my heart, this scene. Like John Travolta, and then you come around, the camera comes around, watch this, it's great. Camera comes around and you see the photo booth, and then John Travolta's in the background.
With Travolta in the background.
Yeah, it's priceless.
That's probably Missy, right? Did that.
I'm sure.
I didn't do that.
And who did this? Like, the guys walk into the surf. Like, who came up with that? Because
I think we did, because that's where he was. And so maybe even in the script.
I love it. It's so visual. It's so experiential. It's like, this is perfect. Like, he's smoking a cigarette, right? And then the dad all alone.
You always got to come up with something to make the scenes interesting, you know? I mean, it would be pretty boring if they just pulled up in a car and arrested him.
Yeah.
If they walk out into the ocean to get him, then it's like, it's interesting.
He could have run for it in a chase scene.
Yeah.
So true, yeah.
And who would only stand to ultimately benefit from my media savvy. To think that they might be responsible for this heinous crime? It simply boggles one with disbelief. Of course, I realized, and I hope this doesn't sound callous, that the upside to all this, assuming justice prevailed, is that I would have in my documentary an extremely marketable commodity. It was something that even PBS would take an interest in. Which, of course, would mean a smaller audience, but a much larger prestige factor.
You want to tell us about it?
I got nothing to tell.
Your friend Russell told us plenty.
Joaquin plays is so authentic and just a deer in the headlights, and then
yeah,
he's so smitten by her.
As career criminals, you guys flunk out of kindergarten. Your prints are on the gun.
So Gus, was this difficult, this particular scene? With Joaquin?
I mean, I think we wanted him to cry, and he wanted to cry, but didn't happen. But
well, but it did happen, didn't it? Like.
I mean, kind of.
I think he gets there.
She said I had real potential on TV because of my voice.
Doing what with your voice?
Sports, like being a sports announcer.
So when did you start banging her?
It wasn't like that.
What was it like?
I just remember being really impressed when these dailies appeared because he was so consistent, you know, because there were like 3 or 4 takes of a wide angle and then there were 3 or 4 more takes of a close-up, and he was just really there on every take, you know. He was, it was kind of amazing how he was able to sustain that and do it over and over again, you know, from the beginning of the scene into getting really emotional and then coming out into these happy memories by the end of it. And I remember, like, I think the next time I was on set or something, I mentioned to him that, like, how great he had been. He says, "Oh, I'm so glad you told me because I thought I was terrible in the scene."
In her car.
Yeah, I guess he gets there.
Yeah. And one's at school.
Jesus Christ, at school, huh?
Yeah. In the back of the gym. And once late at night at the station where she does her weather reports. And twice at the motel in Piedmont. Oh, in the back of Russell's truck. And the movie theater on Hayworth. Oh, a couple times at her parents' house when they're away on some vacation or something. And
I think this was a funky surveillance camera, or that kind you'd see up in the corner of a convenience store, and it was just this little tiny camera that had almost the worst image you can imagine, just to add in, you know, the idea of interrogation. Like, this is when we truly understand Suzanne's dark, dark side.
Is it my imagination or is that diet working, huh? You lost a few pounds in there?
I don't know. I haven't been eating much lately.
So what's this about talking to the police?
Just figured that Russell would tell them everything, so...
Look, no one's gonna believe anything Russell or Jimmy say. I mean, they're just a couple of punks. They wouldn't be in this deep shit if they kept their mouths shut. There's no evidence that we're involved.
I always like this scene here because it was, I noticed in the script, this was scheduled to take place outside the mall. So the device Gus came up with is to drag her into, in mid-conversation, drag her into this kind of utility hallway. It's just a nice little touch, I think.
No, I don't think so.
She can switch. She can switch so quickly, like that. It's crazy.
That's the way sociopathic people behave, Eric.
Well,
you must have known a few in your time.
Well, I now know.
Working in the movie business, you see quite a few of them.
Yes, yeah. Well put.
Wait a minute! Wait a minute! I thought we were friends!
Well, okay then. You take some advice from a friend. You keep your fucking mouth shut.
And then they're right back out there. You know she's really crazy. And now getting on the staircase. This is like, I don't know, it's fun. Kind of magic realism, I think.
It's another one of those great ideas to keep the scene interesting, because at the end she's said her piece and now she ascends back up into her world, leaving Lydia in the basement, basically.
Yeah.
Thank God we still have legal procedures in this country. The court has wisely ruled this is a clear case of police entrapment.
Okay, that's Joyce Maynard right there. And she's playing Nicole's lawyer, or Suzanne's lawyer. I always like the applause here.
Hey, Gus, did you see that there was a profile in the New York Times just a few weeks ago about Pam Smart and sort of an update on how she's doing?
How's she doing? I forgot. I didn't read it.
Yeah, she's still in jail, and she had been transferred to a prison in New York State 15 or 20 years ago. And she's something of a celebrity there. And apparently everybody in the jail is familiar with the movie. And according to the article, they all refer to it as her movie. And she says, that's not my movie. She was quoted in the article as saying, that's not my movie. I didn't have anything to do with it.
Does she not like it?
I got the feeling from the article that she's still maintaining her innocence, and so she doesn't like the fact that the movie pretty unambiguously nails her as being guilty, even though it's not literally her.
Yeah.
But it's definitely, the article made it sound like the movie has definitely enabled her to maintain her image, and apparently what she always wanted anyway, right, was
fame,
celebrity.
Yeah, that's true. Except she's in jail. Yeah, but that was true when we were doing it, right? That same situation. She was in jail, but she was famous.
Watch Dan Hedaya. Just track his eyes. This is amazing. He's going to go insane.
That's another one of those things that because digital has made it so easy now on scenes like that, you would never shoot it to playback these days. But I always feel like it's you get better results when it's playing live and the actors can work off of it. And you get those great little flashes of the distorted image on the as the TV's getting smashed up, which you'd have to try to recreate digitally, and you probably wouldn't bother.
Yeah.
Nowadays.
Well, And we made our decisions then, and they were good decisions.
Yeah, you have to commit to it.
Most people would cover their ass and shoot it 12 ways.
Yeah, that's true.
Answer your phone call, which I must say wasn't entirely unexpected, since in the last few days a number of interesting offers for my story have been literally pouring in from the networks and some major movie studios. I totally understand why we'll be keeping this.
This is the difficult shot for me because it's like, okay, we had already shot the interview stuff, and now we have to do this.
And I have to.
We realize that it's an audition tape that she intends to take to a studio to get a job. It's not apparent the way it's presented. And so in the end, we go to this wide shot that shows her speaking to the camera that she's obviously set up on a tripod. So this is kind of the reveal. But it works. It totally works. Because, Gus, you're right. She's against her window.
It's just cluing the audience into what they've been watching through the whole film. It doesn't have to match exactly. It just kind of like you connect the dots that way. And, it's really satisfying.
And then, God, we come back to the camera. It's a great choreography in a single take. At this point in the film, we're kind of racing to the curtain, as they would say in theater. She's going to meet this guy under the bridge, and he's going to fucking kill her.
The out-of-focus shot. We showed this in the dailies, like, as a choice of, like, a look that could go through the film. Sandy saw it, like, Laura's assistant, Sandy, and he said, "What is that?" And we're like, "It's a, it's a sort of off-kilter lens, And we say, "Isn't it great?" And he's like, No, it's not great. It's out of focus." I'm like,
"Oh, well."
And we're like, "Yeah, but that's on purpose. It's a look." And he's like, "No." And I said, "We should never do that." And he goes, "No, never, ever do that."
Yeah.
So we left it,
Yeah.
but we only used it once. We were going to use it through the whole film.
But it's apropos to what I think is like the rule of filmmaking, or the rule at this time, which is like, if you have a shot and it works, fuck the rules. It's like when we shot, when we shot Joaquin in the jail cell and we overstepped the boundaries of the frame. It's like, if it just works, go ahead. It's like, don't film as a plastic medium, and then it's what images you put in front of people's eyes that matter. And it's and people are so forgiving about what they watch.
When we cut to the body, it was within the scene. It was within the shot of the skating.
Yeah.
And the body looked really bad because it was like a mannequin, and it wasn't a real body. So we had to think of something up. So there's a cut by the time it goes to Nicole under the ice.
Right.
And it's really Nicole, and she has sort of there's kind of like this fake frosting on a piece of plexiglass that we like shoot the real Nicole behind the plexiglass.
Yeah.
And Nicole's kind of painted white.
You're saying that when you were shooting at the frozen lake, you actually put a mannequin under the ice?
Yeah, and the special effects were kind of lame, and it looked like a mannequin, not a person.
We shot it twice, yes.
Uh-huh. How did you get the mannequin under the real ice?
We just cut a hole in the ice.
Yeah.
This is the shot, and now we cut to this. But this isn't a studio.
And it's Nicole underneath a piece of plexiglass with that frosting on it, and we're blowing it away. But that's Nicole. That's she's actually.
But the mannequin looked nothing like Nicole. So I mean, we made this much later.
I'll be here every day for life, plus 30 years.
When we were filming Joaquin in this set, where he's in a box, and that was that was something I think you just said, well, let's just put black flags and do between.
Oh, and make the box, yeah.
And so the box was, so we were filming the box on the set. It was analog. We didn't do any cropping later.
Right.
But it was one of those things I'd never done before, and I'd never seen before in a real feature film. So it was kind of fun to do that, take a chance, like will they buy it,
Well, when he's in the prison set,
right?
It was made up of like 4 wall, ceiling, and 3 walls.
A set.
And the end of it was the camera and lights. So when Joaquin was doing this interview, he couldn't see the crew. He could just see these lights and a camera lens. And so he was waiting for us to set up. And he was sitting there, and he eventually realized that there was no crew in back of the lights or no cameraman. And he got up saying hello, hello, and looking in back of the camera and seeing no crew at all, and just wandering into the stage and wandering around the corner. And there was a TV set, and the whole crew was watching OJ. Driving in the white van, including you and I, Eric. We were all watching OJ escape, in this endless drive.
It was alive. Like the helicopters were following the Bronco.
Yeah, exactly.
And right, it was a pause, and it was actually a pause in the filming on the set. And it's, how many dollars an hour being spent for us to watch OJ. It was
but everybody had drifted off and saying, "Oh, you got to see what's on TV right now." But he was left there.
But it was so it was so apropos to the movie, to what we were doing.
I know. And then meanwhile, it was